Hey guys, Harvester here. Today I will be showing you how to take your melee ability to the next level in Soulframe. This technique I have not seen a video on, nor have I really seen anyone else utilizing it, so I'm just going to go over it here, because I want to get the word out about this. This is like insanely OP. I'm talking like you can have level 1 melee weapons and fighting level 30, not Koga, obviously, but like level 30 or just northeast level enemies and doing a lot of damage to them and preserving yourself. So there are a couple key things that you'll need for this melee technique, and one is going to be the rune Torch Eternal if you're using a Polearm, or if any rune that gives you the fire buff, which to my knowledge that's the only runes for melees in this game. I could just be wrong about that though, so please take that with a grain of salt. But the idea behind this is going to be to maximize your damage potential and maximize your longevity potential. And the rune is going to play a key role in the damage potential. You'll be doing more damage, and this helps you get there. With the weapons, you can kind of mod them however you want. There are a couple mods that you will want to put on your weapons, just because they complement this very well. The one I would highly recommend putting on your weapons is Headlong 35 Heal on Pulse Smite. This technique is going to rely heavily on pulse smites, and this perk here, or spirit here, I guess, whatever it's called in this game, is going to give you the longevity you need to take on high level enemies and not die immediately. The other ones, I have physical armor on here. These are not all completely upgraded. I should upgrade them, and I would highly recommend you upgrade them. But I'm kind of new to the game, so I haven't upgraded everything that I have yet. And then plus 20 damage to smited enemies. Like I said, smiting is a huge part of this build. It's what makes you effective, so the extra damage to the smited enemies is going to be huge. You're going to have this extra damage, then you're going to have the fire damage or the flame damage that is going to proc with the pulse smite. And then I just have plus 10 attack speed because polearms are kind of slow. Great swords are also kind of slow, so I put the attack speed on these two weapons. But the other one, you can kind of, like these two, this one and then this one, don't have to be what I have equipped. It's really the only animal spirits you need are going to be the heal on pulse smite. These three are very interchangeable. I would recommend the plus 20 damage to smited enemies because it is pretty useful. At least I find it's pretty useful for enemies that might be smited a couple times, like bosses, or just high level, high armor NPCs. Especially if you're using lower level weapons. If you're using higher level weapons, then they're really not that big of a deal. But lower level weapons, this is going to play a lot more of a role in. The plus 10 attack speed and the plus 7 physical armor and that stuff, you can, if you find something that works for your playstyle, go with it. These are not mandatory. So that was the polearm, and then the sidearms, you're going to want a flyblade. This is a requirement for this technique. So what you're going to do with the flyblades, again, you're going to, I like this card, the orbiting flyblades reduce enemy armor, so it's also making the enemies around you weaker. And when you're a melee class and everyone's right next to you, this is a huge, like, the flyblades give you a little bit of a radius of weakening power, essentially. Plus 12 magic armor, that one's not necessary. Plus 6 defense against stagger, also not necessary. But for this one, so you do have the option for the 35 heal off of a pulse smite. I 100% honest with you, in my testing in this, I just find that to be overkill. Typically speaking, going for additional smite is going to be better, because I'm getting let's just say I have like 10 enemies around, and I'll even show examples of this with gameplay. Let's just say I have 10 enemies around and I throw my daggers in the air. Like, I'm typically getting 2 or 3 pulse smites in a short period of time. So I don't see the extra healing as useful, because you're essentially just, if I heal 70 health off of 1 pulse smite, then I'm full health after 1, and the other 2 or 3 or however many there are just kind of useless, other than to rebuff yourself. So I go for the additional pulse smite here just for the chance of it proccing more, especially in battles where it's going to be a little bit more prolonged, like boss attack or boss fights and stuff. The rune here does not really matter. One tip for this: if you get a pulse smite with your secondary out, make sure you switch to your primary, because the idea is to use your secondary only as the circular blades, or I don't remember what it's called, the ability where they fly around you and do a lot of damage, and then use your primary weapon as your main damage dealer. The secondaries are more so just to proc the smites to maintain your health and maintain your damage output. So one thing I do want to include is the Pact. So right now I'm running Bromius. I'm just trying to level this up and max this out. Typically when I'm running this, I'm going to be running the Tethrin Pact. So with Tethrin, you have all 3 of your abilities are pretty good for this. Felist basically does more damage consecutively throughout your hits. Don't quote me on this, but level 30 Pact I think is going to get you 6 hits, so 6 incremental hits. I think like level 1 gives you 3. I could be wrong about the numbers, but I do know a maxed Pact you get substantially more attacks before the ability has to recharge than a level 1. So just keep that in mind as you're playing. Now, with the strategy here, what I like to do is I like to start off with using this ability, preferably when enemies can't see you. Just that way it minimizes any chance that they'll get a lucky hit on you and build your stagger. But the reason being is because typically the first attack doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It does buff you a little bit, but it doesn't add a whole lot. So what I do is I use my first attack as the orbital blades. I think that's actually what it's called. First time I said it right this whole video. So I'll use the first attack as that, essentially skipping number 1. It gives me a little bit of a buff on the orbital blade. They do a little bit more damage. But then I'm also building to the higher impact attacks quickly. So with that, this is really good for bosses. In non-Koga, I never have to use a health potion against bosses. Part of that is I've learned their dodge, or learned when to dodge and where to dodge with the bosses. But the other part of that is just that I pulse smite so often that even if they do hit me, I legitimately am always full health, because they hit me and I just pulse smite and I'm full health again. The Call of Ancients, that one's just going to draw enemies to you and increase your damage and increase your defense. This is just good in general, paired with the first ability Felist. So I would highly suggest utilizing Call of the Ancients. Perhaps proc this before you start combat, depending on the situation, or if you need to start with the Felist ability, proc this when you can, then throw your orbital blades, because the Felist ability does not start recharging until all hits have been used. And just for clarification, I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm going to mention it here. With the Felist ability, if you swing and miss, it does use one of the procs. So it is not based off of how many enemies you hit, it's based off of how many times you attack. before the ability starts recharging. So once you use it, you can save them as long as you want, which is huge, really nice. But once you've used an attack, that level is gone. So if you swing and miss, you're on level 2 for the next enemy. If you swing and miss again, you're on level 3. If you swing and miss again, you're on level 4, so on and so forth. So that's just one thing to keep in mind with the synergy of these two abilities. Use this one first, hold on to it. If you can, get into a safe position. If you're in the heat of battle and haven't popped these yet, get into a safe position, use Call of Ancients. That's going to boost your damage potential. Then throw your fly blades and move in. The last one, Clash, staggers and stuns enemies, and it increases your defense against stagger. Typically, if I'm in any scenario where there's one tanky enemy and a bunch of other minion kind of enemies, what I'll do is I'll go up to the tanky enemy. I might have a clip of it, and I'll probably include it in the video just so you can see what I'm talking about. But I'll go up to the tanky enemy, and I'll use this ability after popping the first two. I'll use this ability. Typically what will happen is the enemies like right next to him will be pushed to the ground and stunned. And the enemies further away are going to be staggered and stunned, just not as long as the ones right next to him. What that does is it allows me to, one, use my fly blades and start proccing smites, and two, it gives me the one-on-one against the tankier guy. Ideally, what you want to do, you don't want your fly blades killing a lot of things. The more times they hit the enemies, the more chances you're going to get to pull smite. So whenever there's like a tanky enemy, I just aggro him, ignore the others, just continually using my fly blades. Obviously dodge their attacks, don't let them kill you, but the idea behind it is let your fly blades circle you, damage the enemies around, try to pull smite, and then do massive amounts of damage. And that just pairs really well with the Tethran abilities overall. The other thing too I should mention about Felist is it's per attack, not per hit. So with the fly blades, it counts as one attack as long as they're circling you. With that being said, you don't have to worry about you running out of hits. And what I would suggest if you're trying to melt bosses or melt enemies that are a little above your weapon level, what I would suggest if you're running this Pact is to wait for the pulse smite before engaging with the enemies. Just kind of kite them around utilizing the orbital blades, because I don't think I've ever had a time utilizing this technique where I've used the orbital blades 6 times and wasted my Felist. And I will tell you that this combination has high potential to one-shot bosses and not Koga, depending on the weapon you're using and how you've modded it. It probably wouldn't happen with my Polearm here, but I'm just trying to level things up. So it does get less strong if you have less strong weapons. But regardless of that, it still allows your weapons to be phenomenally useful when you're outmatched equipment-wise. So that's the whole technique. The last couple of clips you saw were actually Koga boss runs. So this technique is very effective for Koga. When I was talking in the video, I had not yet played Koga, so in my mind, Koga seemed a lot more difficult than it was. At least with this technique, it's not very difficult at all. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate the support, and peace.